Hey everyone. Today I have something pretty exciting to talk about in the world of, privacy related things and AI. I know AI is a really popular topic right now, and it does even get quite annoying to me, right? But it's a tool that, a lot of people use, especially, even if you're against AI, you probably use it inadvertently at some point without knowing it. But if, you strictly don't, that's fine too. But this is something today that's I want to talk about that's pretty cool to me, right? Over the past couple years or so, when getting used to AI and stuff, right? AI is great, right? It's kind of like, when the Google search started becoming really popular, it works really well, but there's always a question, right? What's going on with all the data and all the information that I'm feeding into the Google search? What's happening with it? Where's it going? And how is it being used against me for targeted advertisements in order to make money off me? Well, today, we're in the same kind of state right now with AI, right? When you submit, AI queries to like ChatGPT, you know, Claude, all that kind of stuff, Grok, even, right? If you use that, who knows what happens with that data? Who knows, how they're using it? They're probably number one, training their models, and number two, selling that data to advertisers, unless there's some clause that's probably deep in the terms and conditions. But today, I want to talk about something that's pretty cool that Proton released. If you guys don't know, Proton is essentially like a suite of basically privacy focused, email, drive, calendar, events, stuff like that. Proton Mail is a pretty big thing, I guess, in the privacy community. I know some people are against it. I'm a user of Proton Mail and some other Proton services. I think it's pretty good. If you're trying to get on the right path and head to more of a privacy focused life, it's definitely a good stepping point. Ultimately, if you really want the ultimate most privacy focused things, self-hosting is definitely a way to go. But if you're trying to just get off Gmail or Yahoo Mail or Outlook, whatever you use, Proton Mail is a good stepping stone. But enough about Proton Mail. Today, Proton actually they released their own, I guess, AI chatbot called Lumo, and it's pretty cool, right? So it's finally nice within the Proton suite. They have a chatbot, which I was kind of, I was thinking about this the other day. I was kind of like, oh, I'm surprised they haven't released this already. But essentially, it's a privacy focused chatbot. They're trying not to exploit your data. All the same reasons you came here for email, VPN, all that kind of stuff, right? So the big selling point, right? It's private. They don't keep the logs. All the data is under GDPR. European rules and regulations, right? So there's different, data privacy acts. It's not like the United States where it's basically, the Wild West. You can do whatever you want, right? So the big claim to fame is that, it's secure, and they don't want, do you feel like that your data is going to be used and trained and sold and held against you, kind of stuff. So basically, kind of like I already said here, GDPR, right? So it's susceptible to all those laws and rules and regulations. And here they kind of show, kind of like what makes it different. Like a little chart here kind of shows you like the positives, and then, Gemini, Copilot, OpenAI, even DeepSeek, they don't have all these. Now, I know, right, you got to be wary. This is probably all just for sales because, this is a paid thing, but there's a free to use option as well, which is kind of neat. Like I said too, right, that there's a free and then, a plus option too. But the thing that I like is essentially, if we scroll up here, that you don't have to use it. You don't have to be signed in to use it. It allows you to use it unsigned in, and I think that's great because someone like me, right? I get sick of having to make accounts for everything that I have, and I just feel like even the stupidest shit today you have to make accounts for, like parking, like in this big city, you have to have an account for that. Paying a stupid like fee, like one time bill, or even at like an oil change place, they sometimes ask you to make like an email account or something. It's like, do I really need to be doing this? But nonetheless, it's kind of a good thing here. Like we don't have to use an account; it's optional. There's only limited queries per day. But hey, if you're someone that's privacy focused, you're probably not using AI as much. But if you do want to use AI a lot and you're privacy focused, like I've said, my recommendation is to self-host something. Self-host something that's offline. That's the only way you'll know that your data is not being exfiltrated out. Now, we could take a little look here and maybe do a little demo, kind of see how this works. But one thing I always like to ask AI, and the one thing that I know pretty well, this kind of relates back to my college years. If I like to ask it, can you write write me a piece of code in Java that acts as a slot machine? So this is something I like to do because this is one of my most like memorable programming projects from when I was in college, and it's just like a quick test for me to see like how it writes it and how it goes. And it's like a neat little test to see like is it working. It's kind of like my baseline, right? And so far, I mean, it seems pretty good. I'm sure there's like different ways you can go about it. They got some nice comments in there, which is great. And even a nice explanation too, which is good in case you're a novice to coding. It even shows you how to save it. See, some of them don't even show you. But yeah, essentially, that works pretty good in my opinion. That didn't take that long, and that's all without, signing in, having an account, or having to pay for something now. So yeah, it was able to generate us a slot machine. Sorry, I had to cut the video there, something timed out on my end. But essentially, another question we can ask is kind of more of like a funny one, and I'm sure if you're in the Linux community, you know this, but you could say, how do I remove the French language pack on Linux using the CLI? This should be kind of a funny one to see if it gives us the correct answer, because usually what people will say is, they'll tell you the sudo rm rf no preserve root, which will remove your root directory. But honestly, there's been instances where people screw up when they're trying to remove the French language pack. But obviously here it shows you how to do it. So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it works, right? I'm not gonna go into if this thing is doing deep research or anything like that. But essentially, it's pretty cool. It's a little privacy-focused AI tool. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a full, end-to-end proven solution. Like, if no matter what info I put in here, it's going to be safe. But it is a step up, right, opposed to using ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. But, let me know what you guys think down below. If you think this is just AI slop and you don't want nothing to do with it, that's fine. But, if you think you can kind of utilize this, and, maybe, who knows, maybe Proton will release basically kind of like an image of their LLM, so that we can download it. But that would be pretty cool in the future. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, and or subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.